And we're live. Hi everyone and Happy New Year. Welcome to the Polygon Forest. I'm Ubisoft concept artist Vin Hill. I'm joined as ever by the indie developer Mr. Christopher Jarvis.
Hello.
So yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. Like, news has already gotten kind of crazy. We were going to do our Game of the Year sort of thing this week, but that sort of went out the window just with like how crazy January's already been. So yeah, I mean, we were off last week because we did a solo dev roundtable. So if you are into indie development stuff, then please go and check that out. Like, subscribe and comment on that. But over here we talk about video games more than anything. But so, regardless of all that, Chris, it's a new year. How you doing, man?
Hello. Yeah, it's a new year, new me, literally. Got a new Horizon themed Aloy tattoo, so
yep.
I literally look different. I got that finished off on the 30th of December, so I gave Vin a sneaky peek at it. I won't show you guys right now, but there was a picture probably on Twitter and stuff. So at Acrylic Pixel, you can check it out on there, or Instagram as well. I think it's at Acrylic Pixel on Instagram. So yes, I've been doing well. Been playing some games and doing more indie dev work. So about 50-50, I'd say, with my downtime. What about yourself? How have you been?
Yeah, not bad. I mean, I didn't really play too much over the holidays. I was just working on my own little indie game. A lot of animations, a lot of pixel art animations, which I need to sort of chip through before I can sort of implement them in game. So it was a lot of that. But it was kind of strange. Like, as soon as I came off holidays and started working again, that's when I started playing more video games at night. I guess weirdly enough. So I played a lot of games like over the past week, but yeah, didn't really get that much done over the New Year's. But it was pretty quiet New Year's, like pretty quiet Christmas. We went into to lockdown because of obviously for the virus that shall not be named because of YouTube algorithms doesn't like it very much.
Okay.
But yeah, we went into lockdown again, so it was like me and my wife were sort of stuck inside, and we had a quiet one together, and it was fun. It was nice.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there was that indie game that's the Crow thing that you played, and you completed it. Was that right?
Yeah. So I mean, we can dive into what we've been playing, I guess. But yeah, that was the main game which I want to talk about. Like, but before I get into the Crow game, as Chris put it, I also played a game called Solar Ash. Like, I've mentioned this on a previous episode. I finished this one off. I polished it off. Great game. Really, really enjoyed it. Not like a 10 out of 10 or anything, but perfectly serviceable. Like, I thought I had a good time. Very much like Hyper Light Drifter meets Shadow of the Colossus in a weird way, but a lot of quick time puzzles to sort of get through, but very, very flashy. It looks great, like a really simplistic sort of art style. But if you're interested in anything like Hyper Light Drifter, then it's very much in the same sort of vein of like very pink and blues, very 80s in terms of color palette. But great game. Like, I really, really enjoyed it. But yeah, as you mentioned though, the Crow game came along. Yeah. And I've been seeing people talking about this game, and I thought, I've just finished Solar Ash. Like, I don't really want to dive straight into another indie game straight away, or an indie styled game, because Solar Ash really isn't that much of an indie game. Like, I don't know, like, this whole term of like indie game sort of has been bastardized at this point. Like, it's just because we see a game that's made by a small group of people, it doesn't automatically mean that it's indie. Like, it's still published by a publisher, so it's not technically an independent game.
I think indie game doesn't really mean anything if you actually start to pay attention to it, because anything that you've heard of and you've liked, this has been picked up by a publisher, and so therefore it's
exactly
published.
Yeah,
it's not independent. So yeah, we needed a new genre. I think it's like indie music. It doesn't mean independent, does it, anymore? It just means a certain thing. And so with indie music, everyone knows what you mean when you say indie music.
Yeah.
But I think with indie games, I think it's similar in that it's not slightly mainstream and quite just more niche. Not totally niche, just more away from the mainstream. I think that's kind of what it means. And smaller budget, smaller team, smaller time.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways around this. We could just say because we have a term AAA, and we generally know what that means. It means big studio working on big projects, big budget sort of thing. That's what the AAA sort of thing goes for. And we sort of understand what AA means as well, which is like a team that is maybe 20 to 50 people or something, and we sort of understand like games like A Plague's Tale and Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, same thing. We sort of understand that those are AA. Why can't we just have single A games? Like, why don't we use that term?
A games.
A games.
That's a good time as well. A game. It's an A game.
Yeah, it's an A game. It's not B tier or anything like that. It's just a single A game, and then a AA game, and then a AAA game. We sort of understand this terminology, but like I would like to see us sort of.
We should start it. Starts here, right? We're
right.
Going to call.
I played a single A game, and it was called Solar Ash. It was a good game. Yeah, but it was only I think it was only like $30 or $40, so not a full price game. That's another thing that defines like a single A game to me, I guess.
Not a full price game. Yeah,
right.
Bit cheaper.
Yeah, generally a little bit cheaper, smaller, like shorter experience for the most part. And yeah, Solar Ash sort of fit right into that. But yeah, like I was saying, I didn't want to jump straight into another indie game, but this thing, I don't know why, I saw it and I was like, people keep talking about this. It was on Shuei Yoshida's top like indie games of the year, and I was like, okay, I better go and check this thing out. And then I looked up the price and it was only $20, and I was like, killer, $20, like no harm, no foul.
For a good recommendation. Yeah.
So I jumped straight into it, and this game is called Death's Door. If anyone hasn't heard of it,
that's it. Death's Door.
Yeah, and
slash crow game.
You do indeed play as a crow. In this
cool crow that's got cool animation. I was thinking that animation is actually pretty decent on the cutscenes that I've seen.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's such a I'll try and give a setup. It's basically like an isometric top-down action adventure game, very much in the same lines of kind of like Hyper Light Drifter in a way. It's very similar. It's very crunchy, snappy combat, like very much reaction based. People have likened it to things like Link to the Past, like in Zelda, but I don't really consider it that close to that game. Like it certainly it has the sort of combat dance of that, but not really. But man, this game is amazing. Like it's probably my favorite game of the year so far, without a doubt.
So what makes it good then? What is it when it comes to games that you consider to be good? It's obviously more than one thing. It's like, oh man, it's such a good game. It was because of a mechanic.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing it's more than one thing that makes it good.
It's basically the whole package of it. Like it's very much. The best way I can describe it is that imagine if Studio Ghibli turned around and said, "Hey, we're going to make a Dark Souls game." That's what it's like, and it's the character design and the world building is very Ghibli-esque in that respect. Like the characters are really, really unique. Everything's charming. Everything's nice and pretty. It's a very, very polished game. I didn't see a single bug in my 20-hour playthrough that I've played. Really, really just clean game, but the combat feels snappy and great. The characters are great. The story is enough to sort of push you along. My only criticism, which I had with the game at any point, is that you probably really needed a map, because you get lost quite a lot, like even in places that you've revisited, especially the places that you revisited. You're like, oh, is this where I need to go? I can't remember which way I need to. And if we just, not like a hyper detailed map that would sort of ruin the aspect of exploration, but just like a regional map, I think would have really, really helped this game. So that knocked it down like a tiny peg. But God, just the overall combat, like everything reads really well. And what I mean by reads is that when you see an enemy, you automatically know like how to approach it based on how it's designed and how the combat sort of flows. All the bosses are like really unique. Everything is just, I don't know, it's just a fantastic game. And like for $20, this is seriously underpriced. Like it should have been double this, in my opinion. Like it's really that good. It's made by the same team that made a little game called Titan Souls a few years ago. And
Titan Souls.
Yeah, and that was basically a pixel art version of Shadow of the Colossus. Like they made that.
Sweet.
Which is a great little game where you only have a single arrow, and every time you fire it, you have to go and retrieve the arrow to fire it again.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, really, really
like
unique
that.
mechanic. And some of that is in this game as well a little bit. Like they introduce some of that. Like for
It's
example,
like a boomerang or something.
no, not that much. But when you fire an arrow, it takes away a magic slot. So you've got like 4 slots at the top along with your health, and every time you fire an arrow, it takes one of them away. And the only way you can get an arrow back or a magic slot back is by hitting an enemy or an object with a sword swing. So if you fire off 4 arrows really quick, you have to like get a melee hit on them. Otherwise, so it sort of
that's clever.
It's very clever, and it's really well balanced as well, because you are never just like running away and just firing arrows and that's all you're doing. So you have to. It sort of promotes this gameplay loop of you experimenting and trying new things and having different things. But yeah, just such a fantastic game. Like really, really charming. Like me and my wife played it, and just like all the way through, I was just giggling and laughing at just like the characters themselves. There's like, I'm not going to spoil too many of them or anything, but there's one character that's
there's a house that's being shown.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you can find a house. Awesome. Yeah. But there's this one character that's just he's basically just a squid, and that's it. But he's carrying around a human corpse, and he's pretending to be a human. And everyone else is like in on the joke, but like obviously you notice it straight away, because like there's a squid on your back and he's like controlling this corpse. And whenever you talk to him, he's like, "Hello, fellow human," and stuff like that. It's like, "Hello, fellow like biped," and stuff like this. And it's just really quirky stuff like that. It reminds me a lot of Ghibli in the character design. There's some characters that are a bit too influenced by Ghibli, in my opinion. Like the witch looks a lot like the witch from like Howl's Moving Castle and things like that. So there are elements of Ghibli where it might have gone a little bit too far. Yeah, lifted.
Okay.
But it doesn't detract away from like what a fantastic game this is. Like I'm absolutely in love with it. Like I've seen some people complain about the aspect of like that it's the isometric view. It like confuses the eye a little bit, and like when you think you're near something, it's actually like jumping up in the air and it's closer to camera. So it looks like
hitboxes are a bit odd with certain enemies and abilities.
I've seen them criticisms, but honestly, like the combat just clicked with me, and I've fallen in love with it, and to the point now I'm on my second playthrough. Like there was one trophy I didn't get, which is complete the game with an umbrella, which is basically like the weakest weapon in the game that you can find, which does like half damage. And you like the trophy is called Umbrella Academy, and it's just I just want to be able to like go through the whole game, and I've already finished the first boss again.
With the umbrella,
and it's super difficult, but it's great, man.
How long is it then? How long did that take you?
On my first playthrough?
Yeah.
My first playthrough was 16 hours, I think I clocked in at, and I 100%ed the game. So you could probably finish it in 12, I would say, like if you weren't looking for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good weekend game. I could get my...
It's a great weekend game. It's the best It's the best way to sort of experience it. Like just sit down on like a Saturday morning, just like blast through it for a couple of days. You'll have a great time. Just don't go into it like expecting a Link to the Past or Breath of the Wild like sort of style game or anything like that, like because you won't get that out of it. But just it's a $20 game, and it's one of the best games I've played in a long time. Like in terms of indie games, like it's probably my favorite indie game since Hyper Light Drifter. So
does Contender feel like potentially? Because you started playing it in 2022. It's like
that's the thing. If I played this game last year, it would have been my game of the year, without a doubt, hands down. It would have been. This is for me. Like I enjoyed this more than Halo Infinite. Put it that way.
Really?
Yeah. Like that's how much I'm loving this game. Like it's just it connects with me on so many different levels, and not like that's not even like talking about like how damn cute the game is. Just in terms of like the character design, like the crow is hilarious, because like whenever you're in a cutscene or whatever, like everyone's being super serious and dark, like we're talking about death and stuff like this, like you're the Reaper and stuff like that, and this crow, your main character, is just sat there like with his little head crow twitches,
just going
looking really confused, and it's so great. Like it's very, very self-aware. It knows exactly what it is, and I can't recommend it enough. Like a 10 out of 10 game that needed a map. Like that's the best way I described it. Can't fault it. Such a great game.
Okay, I'm sold. I'm gonna have to get that when I get. Well, I'm gonna have to wait because I'm broke. It's January.
And there's a lot of stuff coming.
Oh my god, yeah. I have to wait till payday then, and then that might be the next one. Because I was like, what am I going to play? I had like backlogs and all load of games that I'd like half started, and none that I'd sort of fallen in love with. And I'd finished Halo Infinite, so I was like, what am I going to play? And I was doing my indie game, and I was like, I need something that's just going to kill this few hours. So what am I going to play that's just going to be a few hours that doesn't take any sort of time commitment, something I know how to play, and something that I think, because it's just going to kill the time. And the purpose for this gaming session was to like just to get me through to the next hour, and then I can move on to a game and choose something. And it turned out that I just kept coming back to this game and kept coming back to this game. And then I started playing it at my lunch. And then I started playing it up until 12 o'clock. And then I would be like, I'll just one more mission. And it's Jurassic Park Evolution. I couldn't stop myself. I couldn't stop playing. I couldn't put it down. It did something. It was okay. It was a fine game. When I talked about it, first of all, I was still learning the mechanics and learning the missions and learning what sort of dinosaurs you get. I can't pinpoint what I love about the game. It's a combination of everything. It just, I think it's the fact that it nails the just play a little bit more wave, where it gets easy and you can achieve, and then it takes that away, like a storm will come, or I'll hatch a load of like Parasaurolophus that will start breaking through the fence, and then like they'll have their own little personalities, and I'm like, I hate that Parasaurolophus. It always breaks out the fence when I'm trying to do something. And then you'll unlock a new island, and then you're like, well, I've completed that mission, but I still felt like I was ramping up. So now I've unlocked these new dinosaurs. Let's go to the new island, and I'll just make these dinosaurs, and then I'll put the console down. And then you do that, and then a new mission comes up, and you're like, well, I can do that mission easily. That's only going to take 5 minutes. And then suddenly you're like, your quick 2-hour session has turned into like a proper afternoon, like, where's the day gone? And then it's like, you have to go to sleep now.
Like, are you playing the second one, or are you playing the first one?
I'm still playing the first one because it's what's on Gamepass, and you know, the fact that it's got, you know, the some of the, well, Chris Pratt doesn't sound like Chris Pratt, so it's definitely not Chris Pratt playing,
yeah, I mean, the only voice actor that they needed for this, and thankfully they got them, was Jeff Goldblum.
Like, Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum's like, even in the tutorial section, and like just the way, like, it solidifies the like the Jurassic Park feeling of experience, because like we grew up with them movies, right? Like where we were kids when we saw them, and like Ian Malcolm is like the dude that you sort of associate with Jurassic Park. And like Chris Pratt for me just does not, like, he's not a part of the Jurassic Park.
He doesn't exude
Jurassic
Park.
Yeah,
he exudes A-list actor. Yeah,
right. Yeah, that's actually a really good way of putting it. So the fact that they got Jeff Goldblum to do the voice acting in this game in particular, is
and the fact he's skeptical about everything you're doing is brilliant.
Yeah, it's great.
Like
perfect.
Everyone in all these like Theme Park and Theme Hospital and all these other games, everyone's trying to get you to succeed, and everyone's trying to get you to play the game, but Jeff's trying to keep warn you about the game. Like, you're gonna start killing people, the dinosaurs are gonna get out, this is bad news.
Yeah, he's like, and this is a great idea and stuff like this. And it's just like, it's like, this is all gonna go off the rails, and this is great.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And he does this little monologue when you unlock the first T-Rex as well, and it's just beautiful. Like, because I went through this feeling of, yes, I got a T-Rex, and then a special music cues, and, you know, it's a special occasion, and you get an unlock, and then Jeff basically pointed out what I was feeling at that moment, and just hilariously made me feel. It was almost like playing with the fourth wall.
Right.
It was almost like. It was some sort of comment like, this is what teenagers are fascinated about, like the Tyrannosaurus, and it was just this moment of like, oh my god, the script is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, whoever wrote this
knows
Goldblum
exactly what smashed it,
and Goldblum smashed the performance and knew exactly what they were trying to get, and it's just like what you were saying. It's just totally paid off for me. It's just totally hit a nerve, and I can't stop it now. It's the first game that's felt like it's got this hold over me that I can't explain, like, why I keep wanting to come back to it.
Yeah.
Like with Halo Infinite, I can say, well, the mechanics are great and the campaigns are great. with this game, I can't say what specifically is.
Yeah, I
pulling
mean,
me.
I had this problem because I got hooked by this game last year as well, and it was like the very beginning of last year, so it was just before we started doing the podcast, so we missed the conversation, I guess. But I remember getting hooked by this, and I remember like trying to sell it to other people, like, oh, you should check out like Jurassic Park Evolution, like it's really really good. And they'd be like, oh, cool, like, is it, like, what you do in it? And I'm like, the more you try and explain it, like, the worse it sounds, almost.
Yeah.
It's like,
Hatch
you
dinosaurs.
right,
Yeah,
you hatch
fair
dinosaurs and you look after them in this park, and it's like theme park but with dinosaurs and stuff, and like
enough. And you got to
Right.
stop people getting killed and shelters and storms.
but
and
man,
things, just
like the gameplay
yeah.
loop on this is just it just grabs a hold of you, and
I can draw it with a line. It does that. It goes whoa, 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 and
Yeah.
every time it's like reeling you in. It's like caught. It's like they've caught me. I'm a fish.
yeah,
And they know exactly when to pull to keep me playing. It's clever. So well balanced.
yeah,
Yeah, and I've unlocked 4 of the 5 islands now, and I've said to myself, once I've had a good go on the 5th one, I'm gonna call it quits. I'm not gonna unlock all the dinosaurs. I'm not gonna do all the missions.
yeah, you will.
I'm not gonna hit all the milestones because I've already started in my head going, right, when I finish the 5th island, am I gonna go back to my 1st island and then see how well I can do? And I know that, and I'm only 20% of the way through the game, and I've sunk so many hours into it because I even started playing it at lunch. I never play video games at my lunch, but that's because got to eat food and have a controller at the same time. With something like an FPS, you can't do it, so you can't eat lunch and play Halo.
Yeah,
But with a park simulator, you can.
right. You can build like a
just
couple of buildings and then jump out.
Have a few mouthfuls. Build some, watch your dinosaur hatch. Have a few mouthfuls of food. Yeah.
And it works.
Send the park
One
rangers
of
off on a
the
mission.
one of the great things about the game, and I think testament to like why it's so great, is that it's one of the few sort of RTS games that gets it right on a controller as well. I think that needs to be said as well, because a lot of RTSs, like the reason why RTS is sort of a genre that has declined over the years, is that it's just inaccessible for the most part for most people. Like it's still accessible, obviously. You can still play an RTS on your controller, but I think this one did it really, really well, to the point that it was like, okay, like it feels like it was designed for console almost, and like PC was secondary to an extent. So it's nice that it's got that going for it, because it allows the casual player to play an RTS, which is something that is sorely lacking. But it's great
And
game.
the way it drip feeds you the right information that you need at the right time,
Right.
as well, is so clever. Like my last time I played the game, so it's just yesterday. I've been playing it for like ages now.
Yeah.
It told me about a new menu view that I didn't know about and how to use it, but it did it through gamification. So it told me through the character explaining something that was to do with the park.
Right.
But it explained a resource mechanic to me in a way that was totally immersive, and that was just super clever. And the fact that it was so late on in the game, and that I'd played the game all the way up until now, and then a new thing has suddenly not been unlocked because I had it all the time, but a new way for me to do my micro and macro decisions on resource management when you start a new island and you haven't got much money. Super cool. Oh, and then the next island I went on, so the 3rd island was like, you don't have much resource and you have to build it up, and it's tiny, so you've got those unique those unique challenges. And then when you go on the 4th island, it's all like open, and there are roaming dinosaurs that you've got to sort of contain, but you've got load of money, but it's really big. So then it's like, well, what do you do when you've got all of this money and space? And it's just flexing different muscles in your brain, so it keeps it fresh. So that's another thing that's worth mentioning, that your play experience is different depending on what island you're on as well. So there's something for every possible type of like theme park style game that you could ever want to go for.
Yeah.
Really well done.
Yeah, I'd probably say it's the best use of the Jurassic Park IP I've ever seen in a video game so far. And like we've seen iterations of like the park simulator from the Jurassic Park IP over the years, but like this by far the best iteration of it. Like we've seen it on PC, we've seen it on the PlayStation 2, I think. Like they tried it back then, Operation Genesis, I think it was called. Yeah, they've tried it over and over again, but this was the first time that it was like, okay, this really feels like a Jurassic Park game. This is exactly what I want.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually like I've sort of avoided Evolution 2 because I know it's just going to grab me and it's going to take me for weeks at a time, and I'm just like, I better stay away from that one because it's going to kill me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's becoming a problem. Like there was days when I've said, I'm going to do my indie game, I'm going to do this UI on my indie game, and then I'm going to play some games.
Yeah.
And then I go, well, I'll just make sure I hatch this dinosaur, and then like the day's gone, and I'm like, okay, I said to myself I'd do this, and it's that wouldn't happen with any other game. So yes, it's been good. And then also just a quick shout out to Nintendo Switch that I've been playing as well. So Mario Kart 8, I've been rinsing that.
Nice.
That's pretty cool. And then some more Mario Odyssey. So that was cool. So yeah, that's what I've been playing.
Yeah, there's been some rumors flying around that Nintendo are about to announce a new Mario Kart game for the first time in 2 generations. So that'd be nice. I think Mario Kart 9. I think they're on.
It would be 9, yeah.
Christ, yeah. I mean, great game, but I can only play for like 5 minutes at a time before I start throwing my controller. It's the only game that makes me physically angry because
really,
yeah, you'll be in first place and just like it punishes you for doing well in that game.
Yeah,
which is sort of annoying.
It doesn't want you to come first. It wants you to come like 5th or 6th.
Yeah, and it sort of promotes sort of frustration. I mean, it's fun like when everyone's drunk or whatever, and you're like in a living room and everyone's like high fiving and stuff like, oh my god, you got me with that banana or whatever. That's a sentence. But yeah, it's
playing the game, not
playing the game
in real life.
Right. But yeah, it's just that whole sort of it punishes you for doing well. Like I'm against that sort of mindset when it comes to games design more than anything. But all the other stuff from Nintendo is great. Don't get me wrong.
There's an element of randomization, isn't there? Yeah. You can hit all the corners and hit all the speed boosts, but then you can still, just through no fault of your own, get taken out. Yeah, I get that.
The majority of games like work out. Like whoever's in second place for the majority of the game is probably going to win. Like that's sort of what I've come to understand. Like your first place all the way through, you're just going to get hammered by missiles or whatever else, like every 5 seconds. But if you're second place, like no one cares about you. But yeah, it's just funny how that works out. But anyway, let's not talk about Mario Kart anymore. Otherwise, it's going to go off the rails because we have got a lot to get through.
We better get on with it.
It's been a very, very busy week. Yeah, so I'm going to let you decide because I can't.
So Days Gone 2.
We can talk about that. Well, Days Gone 1 even. But
Days Gone 1, yes. So the lack of Days Gone 2. So this is back in the news.
Yeah.
We did talk about it before in this podcast, I believe. And it was Jeff Ross who was tweeting, and it was off the back of Ghost of Tsushima hitting the 8 million sales mark.
That's right.
And so he tweeted about it. So at the time I left Sony, Days Gone had been out for a year and a half and a month and sold over 8 million copies. It's since gone on to sell more than 1 million plus on Steam. Local studio management always made us feel like it was a big disappointment. So this is off of the Game Informer article of Ghost of Tsushima reaches another fantastic milestone with over 8 million copies. Mm-hmm. And that was really interesting because for me, it struck a chord because when I read that, I was shocked because I was like, wow, Ghost of Tsushima's come out and every single piece of press that I've seen has just been, well done, Ghost of Tsushima. You've done really well. You've sold so good in this amount of time. You've sold so good in this amount of time. You sold so good in this amount of time. And, you know, the Game Informer article from the 5th of Jan, no different. 8 million copies. You go, wow, that's amazing. And then when you find out that Days Gone was, you know, had similar performance in terms of money, you just think that. And then the fact that, you know, Jeff Ross had left and there was other people leaving the studio and management changes, but then the fact that the studio made those numbers feel like a disappointment when the press is praising Ghost of Tsushima for similar numbers, it's just shocking. And I've got nothing to there can't be any agenda behind this, I don't think, because it would just damage your future relationships if it wasn't true. It's definitely, unless he feels like his bridge is already burnt, but it, you know, I don't think there's an element of burning bridges there. because you can't be a games designer in the games industry, have that sort of shocking statement without knowing it's going to tread on a few toes. So it's definitely an interesting inflammatory statement.
Yeah, this is a tough one because this just drips with studio politics, and it's kind of a weird thing to say, but like people are like don't know. There's a lot of weird sort of studio politics behind big titles like this. There's a lot of levels of development, like from the publishers, from the developers themselves, especially if it's like this studio that's sort of treated differently in any way, or if it's a new studio, or if it's a smaller group of ragtag people. Like we were talking in the pre-show about this, but the fact that this Days Gone was only made by 100 people is insane. Like the fact that 100 people made a game that sold 9 million units according to Jeff Ross is just amazing. Like you can't knock that. Like it's absolutely incredible. But yeah, it just there's a lot of contributing factors to this, I think, which isn't being discussed that much, and that's the studio politics of what Days Gone is as an IP versus other Sony IP, and what Sony's sort of goals are when they make a game. And ultimately, is Sony making a game to sell a lot of units, or is it making a game that is high praised on Metacritic and Game of the Year contenders? And are any of their IPs sort of conflicting with each other? And Days Gone sort of ticks all those boxes. Unfortunately, it's just like the way that the sort of cookie has fallen, because like I think Days Gone was averaging 7s, 8s out of 10s. Like it wasn't hitting the 9s that Sony games normally do. That's probably
an interesting point.
That was probably
so
the
I guess,
thing that did it.
So even though it was selling, they would be making money and more profit. I just did a quick Google search and it says 2,000 people contributed to Ghost of Tsushima. Right. So, in terms of return on investment, Days Gone was probably a huge money-making side of things. So that doesn't make much sense. I understand that, critics' choices and, how well games perform in Game Awards and stuff, and Sony are aiming to be, the best IPs. They're not interested in 7s and 8s. I get that because they feel like they see themselves as like premium creme de la creme company.
They do nowadays anyway. Arrogance is sort of taking over Sony, unfortunately. But like I'm a huge fan of Sony, but this is the reality. Like they've sort of turned into this. We need the best quality, like no matter what. Otherwise, we're just gonna cut your studio into pieces, which they sort of did with Bend. Like Bend's studio is now like it's mostly like an outsourced studio for other studios. Most notably Naughty Dog, and I think that's where like a lot of the politics around Days Gone,
zombie games,
it gets missed a lot. Like this aspect of it in particular, sort of blows my mind that people don't talk about this more often. But Sony have got The Last of Us and then Days Gone sat next to each other. It's like, okay, which one are you going to kill off? Because they're conflicting with each other at this point. Like they came out pretty close to each other because there was delays for Days Gone. There was probably internal delays for The Last of Us Part 2 as well that we just didn't hear about. Newsflash, everyone delays games internally before it ever gets even announced. It's just the way it goes. So like they sort of landed next to each other. So if you're going to kill off one of these IPs, like you probably have to kill off Days Gone because it's so similar to The Last of Us. Obviously, to the hardcore fans would obviously disagree with that, and I would disagree with it to an extent as well. I really enjoyed Days Gone. I thought it was a great game. I think it absolutely deserved a sequel. Didn't get it. But it is still an open world action-adventure game set in a post-apocalyptic world of zombies where you kill zombies in a very similar fashion to how you do it in The Last of Us. So it's just the politics around that.
I can hear the comments from the haters now.
Sure, let them hate.
We've read some out.
Yeah, I'm not talking like from my perspective, but I'm talking about from like marketing perspective or like the average sort of Sony fan. Like if you put these,
if you were Sony, you one of you is gonna turn around and say, "Why have we got two open world zombie IPs?" Like, and one would say, "It's not Last of Us isn't open world. It's quite clearly corridor games. If you look at this section here, you can quite clearly see that there's only one way to get through to the next level." But then someone else could argue the same about Days Gone. It's like, as you can quite clearly see here, it's not really open world. There's only a few different possible routes you could get to this.
But there is like semi-open worldness to like The Last of Us. Like the Naughty Dog have tried to introduce, like in The Last of Us Part 2, when you get into that area where the first day in Seattle, where it's just like this half open world area. You know, you could argue that's very much like Days Gone, you know. But like the bike aspect and the horde and stuff like that are really interesting in Days Gone, though, compared to what The Last of Us was. A very slow-paced, grueling, like emotional sort of story, which, you know, everyone's got their opinions on, including us. But a lot of this discussion is around the fact that Days Gone and Last of Us are similar in world setting, like different tones, different game design, different gameplay, all that sort of stuff. Like we can list all that stuff off, but the average Joe that walks into a GameStop and looks at The Last of Us Part 2 and looks at Days Gone covers and like, which one should I get, they'll go for The Last of Us every time, which is that's just how
and
it sort of
why
fell
is
out.
that, just to clear that up?
Because of the high reviews, Game of the Year awards, stuff like that. Just everyone talks about The Last of Us. Like there's a constant conversation around it, even years and years after it's come out. Like negative or positive or whatever, like very controversial conversations. But there's a lot of conversation, whereas Days Gone was very much just a blip. And the only time that it really comes back into the news cycle at any point is when something like this happens with Jeff Ross. But to get back around to these sale numbers, that's the only thing that's a little bit wild to me. It's like, this game, 9 million people have played this thing. Why isn't it getting the same sort of praise as Ghost of Tsushima? There's a couple of like counterpoints to this, which you have to point out, just like in fairness. 2 points, like 1.5 million to 2 million of them sales for Days Gone is from the PC side as well, so it's been on multiple platforms. So there's that.
Yeah.
If you take those away, we're at about 6 million, right? Then a big chunk of that probably, and something that people aren't really talking about, is the fact that Days Gone was also a PlayStation Plus game for a month.
Right.
I can imagine a good chunk of that is
from that time where they wouldn't have the cost per unit would have been a lot less. Yeah, that makes sense.
Regardless though of all of that, like we're talking like 4 to 5 million before difference. That. So if even if you get to 5 million, if you get to 4 million players with a 100-person team making a
100-person team,
that's still a massive
big
profit.
Money.
Massive profit. Yeah. But I can imagine like the majority of the disappointment from Sony was probably to do with studio politics around the fact that this was similar to The Last of Us and that it didn't get 8s and 9s, it got 7 and 8s instead.
Yes,
which is a
and one of Jeff's arguments about that was first Killzone like got solid 7s on Metacritic and 7s and 8s across the board, and you know was just an okay game.
Agree.
And then they doubled down and spawned loads of spin-offs, spanning different platforms even. I worked briefly on Killzone Mercenary back in the day.
You did? Back in the day? Don't Google it.
Don't Google it. Whatever you do. Just take my word for it. So I get that as well. It's like, anyone with sort of producer mindset could see how it's a safe bet to give that a sequel, I would say. Specific, the trade-off would be, it might be an 8 game next time, it could be a 7 out of 10 game, but regardless, you're still going to make a huge return on investment, considering it's a smaller dev team. Yeah, you probably need a bigger dev team for the sequel and have a bigger budget so you can do something better. But that would mean that the things that the critics didn't like about it, which might have been some wonky AI or some glitches or bugs here, that would have polished those out, and there wouldn't have been much else to say was wrong with it. And people don't like stories and people don't like characters, but that's that doesn't really make any difference to sales, in my opinion. When people say I don't like this character, it doesn't have any review on.
Yeah, I mean that's just opinion based. Like that's when we get into the nitty gritty of all of that. But I mean, it's just. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the studio politics of this, I think what has happened is that Sony have...
Sounds like it sounds like there was some people getting riled up, which is why people were leaving as well. So it sounds like some people weren't happy because of some things that were happening. So
I mean, because
that could be another reason to ditch it, because the people that spearheaded it, weren't there anymore. But my argument is that it's a valuable IP because of these sort of questions, and people are talking about it on Twitter, and people are doing video game podcasts about it. I think that's a valuable IP, and I think Sony could keep it, and 5 to 10 years time, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an announcement for something similar with that IP. I think it's got value.
It's because what this tells me, when I talk about studio politics side of it, it tells me that Sony did an assessment chart of, okay, what's more valuable to us? Should we pursue a Days Gone 2 and really push this IP to be the next sort of Sony IP, or do we? The problem with that, obviously, is the fact that if Sony have got a lot of Last of Us stuff lined up, where is that going to land, and how much is that going to conflict? And what this tells me is that because Days Gone 2 was cut, that tells me that there's a lot of Last of Us content coming, which there is. We know that. We know that there's a remake. We know that The Last of Us Part 3 is probably getting made. We know about the TV show. We know about factions, the sort of the separate game mode, which it's going to be now, I guess, because then unless they just add that to a director's cut of The Last of Us Part 2 for the PS5, all this stuff is coming. And if there's even more in the pipe that we don't know about, that hasn't leaked out, then that's going to conflict with a Days Gone 2. And they've sort of assessed that and said, okay, we prefer to work on The Last of Us Part 2 stuff because that's a lot more lucrative for us. And it's also a lot more lucrative for us if we just axe Ben's studio up into bits and have them work on all of this Last of Us stuff, because they've now got experience with all of that, especially with the zombies and all that sort of stuff. And what if we add a horde mode to The Last of Us Part 3 or something? This is the sort of stuff that they're probably thinking about and assessing. And obviously we've seen the consequences of that. We've seen studio directors and leadership from Ben Studios just quit and leave because Days Gone 2 was sort of axed and people were forced to work on Last of Us Part 2 and The Last of Us Part 1 remake, which is sort of that is a kick in the teeth. Hey guys, your main competition, which you've been sort of rivaling against this whole time, you're now joining them because they won. And that's I would probably quit too. And do you blame them? Not really.
No, I can't blame them at all. Yeah. No, that's totally legit. You want your own, you fall in love with the games that you work on, and you want them to succeed and do well, and especially when it's forces that it doesn't seem fair, because it doesn't make much sense. There are so many arguments for it to keep going, and some people would argue that it was successful but still got pulled, and so the only reasons could only be nefarious from the studio point of view, like studio politics, like what you say. So
they've assessed this, they've lined it all up, they've put Days Gone and Part 2 and Last of Us into two columns and been okay, who wins this race? And just unfortunately The Last of Us
won more awards.
More awards. It got more press attention. It got more sales. All that sort of stuff. And as much as I personally would have loved the Days Gone 2, and I personally really did not like Last of Us Part 2. I thought the story was an absolute mess, and we discussed this.
When Last of Us 1 came out, you'd prefer Last of Us 2.
Exactly.
Yeah. Same.
And I think that's how they assessed it, and that's before The Last of Us Part 2 came out. All these decisions were made, and they sort of assumed that everyone would unanimously enjoy Last of Us Part 2, even though Naughty Dog probably knew that they was probably going to split some opinions.
Some feathers.
Yeah. And I'm really curious to see how Last of Us Part 3 does, because I think that's going to be really telling to how much they've divided the fan base, which probably isn't as much as I would assume, but I can imagine I can imagine a Part 3 fan base is going to be a little bit smaller than what the Part 2 buyer amounts were, but it remains to be seen. I think so.
Interesting.
Yeah, I really think so. Because when inevitably we see the trailer for Last of Us Part 3, I'm going to be don't care. I really don't care. I do not care. When
we see the 3, I'm not going to believe what I'm seeing.
I'll be that looks pretty. I'm sure there's going to be some good combat moments in that. I'm sure the story will be great and all that sort of, but I just do not care. I'm not invested in this IP anymore. I'm just not, because The Last of Us 2 burnt the hell out of me personally. I just cannot care about that game because how damn depressing it was and just not enjoyable. It was not a fun game. It was definitely an experience, and something that we still talk about.
Yeah.
I just part 3. But if a Days Gone 2 got announced, which I don't think.
Like, ooh.
Yeah, I would be like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'd love to play that game.
Yeah.
I'd love to ride around on my motorbike and run away from hordes and like try and figure out inventive, cool ways to like take out these hordes, because that was an amazing experience to be able to do that. That is what really stuck with me about Days Gone more than anything. People can argue about like, oh, the character moments weren't good and stuff, or the marketing wasn't great, and like really, like you don't ever mention the horde mode, because like the hordes in that game were genuinely terrifying. Like when you saw one rolling over the hill, coming at you, you're like, oh shit, and then you just like, hauling ass, running away from it, throwing grenades behind you, like, Jesus, where's my bike and stuff.
Yeah,
like that, you can't ever get that moment in The Last of Us. You can get it on like a really small personal, like one-to-one moment of like Ellie runs into a clicker or whatever, but it's like, yeah, but it's just a clicker. It's not.
Yeah, totally
200 of them.
I think there's enough. I think you're right. I think you summed it up there. Like there's enough differences to share the space.
Yeah, I mean,
they'd have to spend the marketing to make sure people knew
that's how I would have
different.
looked at it. And it just seems to me that there was some analysts at Sony that weren't completely clued into what the fans are actually going to think of these games and how different they actually are. Like, yeah, from an outsider's perspective, you can say zombie game, but past that, it like the differences start to split apart really, really quickly, especially with part 2, because it's very much more about like an intimate sort of aspect to it, instead of being like Days Gone is sort of wacky and silly at times, and it's a lot more lighthearted, which is what it needs compared like to separate itself away from The Last of Us. But it's still a great game that deserved the sequel, absolutely. And I feel for Jeff Ross. Like, I feel for all the developers that work there. They deserved it, but they didn't get it. Sony, unfortunately, like, as I've said before, like, Sony have sort of got an ego this generation, and they've unfortunately just deemed it unworthy of their IP, of their presence, unfortunately. But that's the way it goes.
Yes. That's like probably a good place to wrap that up, as we do have to crack on.
We do.
So tell me about Ubisoft, Vin. What's happening with Ubisoft recently?
Oh, it's all falling apart. Like, everyone hates us. And oh, you mean the? Oh, okay, right, yeah, I got you.
I meant the Gamepass thing.
Right. Okay, Gamepass. Yeah.
So you had a chat with a guy from Gamepass, or like how did that happen? Did you set that up?
Yeah, it was all me. I just I thought, you know what, guys, you need to fix this, because people are giving us crap, and we need some good news. So I just decided to.
So you're here to deliver the good news.
I'm here to deliver the good news. No, I'm not. But yeah,
so
there was
Game Pass.
If you've been living under a rock, Xbox and Ubisoft are finally sort of teaming up in a way. A lot of people are sort of jumping the gun on this, and it's not quite what people thought straight away, because there's no real way to market this and sort of explain it properly. But Ubisoft Plus, which is a subscription service very much like EA Play, is coming to Xbox. It's not coming to Game Pass like in its whole entirety yet.
In its entirety, because it's its own application, isn't
right,
it?
it's its own sort of subscription service. So you'd have to sign up to like Ubisoft Plus in order to actually get access like the 100 plus sort of games on Xbox, very much like you do for EA Play. However, like Ubisoft did leave it open a little bit when they were tweeting about it, and they said like, more news to come sort of thing. So like, working at Ubisoft, I have no clue about any of this. This is all like corporate decisions, just so you know. Like, I've got no insider knowledge.
You get notified when you see it on Twitter.
Yeah, we literally found out that about the whole Xbox Ubisoft sort of partnership literally 5 minutes before it got announced. We got sent an email internally like, hey, there's some news coming on the channels, heads up. And we were like, okay, cool. And we looked at it and we were like, oh, okay, that's big news. Especially because,
that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, we mainly only got the heads up because of this game, which we're looking at on the screen right now, which is Rainbow Six Extraction.
Yeah.
So the game, it was a game I've worked on for the past year and a half. I'm not on it anymore. I just came off it onto another project, which I can talk about soon, but not yet. Yeah, hint, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, there's the news that came with the Xbox teaming up with Ubisoft was that Rainbow Six Extraction is coming to Game Pass day one. So this game is coming to Game Pass day one, which is great. I think it needs it. I think it got really bad sort of, like it had really bad marketing in the beginning, and it sort of like swung people's opinions on it like pretty early. A lot of people assumed it was something that it wasn't, or when
people get the wrong end of the stick, weren't they, of it?
Yeah, and they still are to an extent, but I think once the game comes out and people playing it, especially now, like a lot of people can just try it out, I think it'll probably get a bit more. How it's going to pan out, I have no idea. I don't know how the game's going to do. Like, I'm a concept artist. I don't work on gameplay or anything, so I've really got no idea like how the game is actually going to pan out in terms of gameplay. But it did.
Have you played it?
Yeah, I've played it a few times.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's previews.
It's just so cool to hear people say that, even though I know you must get bored of it, but it's just so cool to hear a dev say they've played a game that's not out yet. I know it's like, it's not done until it's done, and it looks terrible up until like 20% of the way to the end and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
but
and I played it when it looked terrible. Well, the game inherently didn't look terrible because it's Rainbow Six or anything. It was just like all games look terrible when they're in development. They've got no anti-aliasing on and stuff like that. There's like all the artwork's like half done. Like there's grey boxes everywhere. There's bits missing. like frame rates are like 12 FPS or something. It's just that is what development is like. So like
when people games across the board, and if you're doing it any other way, then you're doing it wrong. Like if it looks pretty halfway through, something's gone very, very wrong.
Yeah, and you're probably prioritizing on the wrong things. But I mean, this was the official statement put out by Xbox, which is Rainbow Six will be available day one on Game Pass, PC Game Pass, and Xbox Pass Ultimate when it releases on January 20th. So yeah, I think the only like real point of worth talking about in this more than anything is the fact like it's great to get another big sort of game for Game Pass, because Mass Effect Legendary Edition just came out on Game Pass. I think it's this week, which is insane.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Is that real? That's happened? That's been announced?
That's happened. That's announced, yeah. I think it's either this week or next week it comes out. And you just get it for free, I guess. So, yeah, good news for Chris. But
yes,
I think they needed something for January, because it was getting pretty dry for the beginning of February for Xbox, because this is the thing, like now that we're getting into like a massive season, like Dying Light 2 comes out next month for Xbox, but Horizon Forbidden West is a massive blip, which Xbox need to sort of like look at and be like, okay, we need to take that a bit seriously. And I think this is probably the first step in that wave of them reacting to it. And I think the best way that they are going to counter against Horizon is by just having a few day one Game Pass games, or just massive games come out onto Game Pass, just so people have got something to play while everyone's over there talking about Horizon Forbidden West, which I'm in the fortunate position of being at having both, so I'm just going to be like I get the benefits from both sides of the fence, which is great. But the thing which is good about this one, though, more than anything, is that it comes to PC Game Pass day one. They normally split those up, and they normally come at different points. Like they put it on console first for a while, and then it comes to PC later. But this is just day and date. Everything comes out all at once. So you can play Rainbow Six Extraction on PC and console. It's cross-play as well, so there's always something to play with.
So when you get owned, you can just say, "Oh, they must be on PC."
Well, you don't play against players in this one. It's just like against the environment.
Oh, so it's against the environment.
It's PvE.
Of course, yes.
Yep. So
see, it's my marketing again. Yeah, of course.
Yep.
Play versus enemy. Of course. Yes, cool. That'll be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to help out your team. So it's team based.
It's very team based. Like if you play this game by yourself, you're gonna get absolutely trashed. Sorry, but that's the way it goes. Like you need at least one other person with a mic, otherwise you're kind of screwed.
I'll need to sort out my headset. Then I need to get my mic sorted out, because this doesn't. I don't think this hooks up properly with my mic. Yeah. Oh, I need to sort it out. But yeah, I need to get that sorted.
I'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, all good news for Xbox players. Like they get a bit of a chunky like AAA game for free. Well, not for free. They still have to pay for Game Pass, obviously, but like it's accessible
like
to them
$10 a month,
which is great. So awesome stuff.
Sweet. No, I'm looking forward to that. Really good.
But yeah, like I was saying before. Sorry, like before we skip on to the next thing. It remains to be seen if Ubisoft Plus will come to Game Pass like fully. Yeah, in terms
of money and
from a gamer perspective, I would assume that it's going to eventually, and when it does,
it's just when.
Yeah, when it does, I think we're going to see like a $5 hike on Game Pass in general, because we're not talking like EA Play where there's like 40 games that they're adding to the EA Vault or whatever. We're talking hundreds when it comes to Ubisoft. Like they're the world's biggest publisher in terms of like employee count and just how much they churn out. Like say what you will about the quality of their games or like what IPs you like or what you don't like anymore or whatever, like all them opinions aside, like they make a lot of content. And I think like if they were to join Game Pass in any capacity, I think it would be huge news. It would be as big as them buying out like a Bethesda. I mean, not as big in terms of like consequences of financial stuff, but in terms of like the impact of Game Pass itself.
Content available to huge, like load of people with content at the fingertips, like
just offloading 100 games onto Game Pass is massive. Like, and it sort of comes into the wider conversation because Sony are about to announce their Game Pass subscription, whatever that's going to be. Like it's codename Spartacus. I don't actually know what the final name's going to be. It's going to be like Play Ticket or something. I don't know what the hell they're going to call it. But yeah, that's a terrible name. Don't call it that.
Pass. Play Pass.
Nah, they'll stay away from the word pass.
Yeah,
they have to. They'll call it something ridiculous. I'm sure that we'll all make fun of, and then it'll become a part of the zeitgeist and ether anyway. But yeah, so it's very much like there's a lot of tactics being set up right now, and it would be really interesting to see what Sony do when they come out. Like, are they just going to come out the gate like, yeah, we've got EA Play and Ubisoft Plus already included in our subscription, and it's not going to take a price hike? Like, these are the sort of things that people are going to be really looking at over the next sort of 6 months.
It feels like the pieces are moving into position for 2022. It feels like the start of a big year.
Heavy. It's going to be a big year. It's going to be a very, very big year.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Indeed.
That's going to be cool. Right, was that a good place to move on then?
I think so.
Let's do PSVR 2.
Yep. So, yeah, PlayStation VR 2. Like, this came out of nowhere, pretty much. Like, CES, there's normally, like, little bits of news, but they don't really, like, drop this sort of stuff that much. I mean, we knew that a PlayStation VR 2 was coming in the pipe somewhere, because they announced new controllers a while ago. Still haven't shown any hardware, but they did come out and show their sort of commitment to the platform, which is good news for VR fans, especially us. Like, we have Oculus Quest. We really enjoy them.
Brilliant.
Are you interested in a PlayStation VR, like, sort of dedicated system? Or, like, I should get your temperature from that first, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, because it will come off of the back of this Horizon Call of the Mountain thing. So if that's going to be exclusive to PS VR 2...
It will, yeah.
I'm going to have to look at how much money it is and what other games they're going to come out with before I start shelling out for another VR console, because I've got, the Quest 2. If it goes on to the Quest 2, I'm happy as Larry, but I'd be very surprised because it's PlayStation. They want to keep their IPs on their own hardware for the most part, and we've only just started dipping their toe into PC stuff, so to speak. So the fact that they've got one of their biggest IPs with what they call a VR experience, people don't even know if it's a game. They don't know if it's just to sit there and look at this thing. I'm skeptical. I'm in a very skeptical mood about this. So I have no idea if the hardware is going to be any good. Don't know if their IPs are going to be good. Don't know if the games they come out with are going to be good. Don't know if it's going to be a glorified experience generator, which it could well be, or it could be reasonably priced. They could totally conquer the world. Who knows? This next year. I mean, we've got this Quest 2. They're going great guns, and they've got an established, market now. So, I don't know. I'm just going to wait and see. I'm not going to get anything day one. I'm going to wait for reviews. I'm going to wait and see what the experience is like before I make any decision. And also, cash is a big factor for me, because I still need to buy a PS5.
Yeah, there's that as well. Like the fact that you need a console for this thing as well, and that does contribute a lot to it. Whereas like if an Oculus Quest 3 or something got announced, I'll probably be a lot more interested in that. But they've said they're not going to do a 3, but they're looking at doing a Quest
Pro, Quest 2 Pro or something like that. So the games that still play on Quest 2 aren't going anywhere. So it's not going to be like a different console generation, but might be upgraded specs like speed or memory.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've said that console's not going anywhere for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. We've heard that we keep seeing pictures of the hardware, but we don't know if that is the actual hardware.
No, there's been no hardware like announced yet. Like the only hardware that's been announced for the PlayStation VR2 so far is just the controllers. That's the only thing we've seen, which look very, very similar to the Oculus Quest things, but they're in black, and they've got the same sort of haptic feedback sensors which are in the DualSense controller of the PlayStation 5. So it's going to be similar to that sort of thing.
So you're going to have the resistance on that. That'd
yeah. Cool. And on that note, they actually added the same haptics are actually put into the headset itself. So when something shakes in a room, like it's going to shake your hands and your head at the same time, which apparently that sort of mixes a lot of stuff up. But yeah, I mean, we can run through the specs real quick. There's they talk about visual fidelity. They are 4K HDR lenses in this one. So
HDR.
Yeah, we're talking twice the resolution of the Oculus Quest, twice the resolution of the last system as well. So headset-based controller tracking. So very much like the way that controllers track your head. Like it can actually do the reverse as well, I think. So actually, like your controller's tracking where your head is as well. So it can actually follow your head movements a lot better. So it's not just like based on gyroscope sort of thing.
Just your head movement. Yeah.
Which is very, very cool. New sensory features, which is I think a lot of this is to do with like eye tracking, which they've also mentioned here. So if you're like looking around in the VR sort of headset, like the camera might automatically like focus where like the depth of field might like disappear from that area and then shift and move as you're looking around, very much like as your eyes do. So how they use that, I'm not too sure. We'll see.
We'll have to wait and see for that. Blimey.
Yeah, but they talk about a lot of the headset feedback, new motor and vibrations that add intelligent tactile element, bringing players. It's got haptics in the headset, all that nonsense. Which
when you get shots like playing Sniper Elite,
right?
You'll player versus player,
you'll actually feel it, sort of thing, which could be really interesting. But I mean,
some people hacking it with car engines and stuff.
God, can you imagine? Oh Jesus, that'd be nuts. But yeah, the OLED screens, it's 2000 by 2040 per eye, which is cool. 4K. A lot of
because that's the only thing that I can't get on with the Quest 2 is that I can still see the pixels. Like I've got my OLED 4K 55-inch TV, and then when I put on the Oculus Quest 2, I can see the pixels.
Looks like a slideshow.
I can see pixels.
Yeah.
Even though it's great and it's brilliant and it's like 4 times as good as the Quest 1, I can still see pixels. So when I'm watching like videos, it's like night and day still. So yeah, they've still got some way to go, but it's the size of that.
I mean, the fact that all the hardware, like that's the thing that makes Quest so great is the fact that everything is sort of included inside the headset. So the fact that it's no wires and stuff like that, and it's just everything is in the headset. Like that's what sort of makes it so accessible, like to people that aren't like they don't need an external PC. They don't need to have this wire like setup that they're going to be tripping over. Like it doesn't look too techy. It's just like no, you just put it on your head and you look around and you play a bit of Beat Saber and then you put it down and then you're happy. Whereas all these other things are a bit more complicated as well. But that does bring on to question, like we could go through all of these sort of bits which don't matter too much like to the average Joe. It's vibration in the headset, USB Type-C. But the thing is with this headset is that it is still wired. Like there's a singular wire that comes out of the headset and it still plugs into your PS5. So that is the big talking point around that, as well as the price, which has not been announced. We don't know how much this thing is going to be.
It's gonna be expensive.
It's gonna be expensive.
Or
will it? Or will it only be $399 or something? I mean, which is still expensive. Don't get me wrong.
I think it'd be $400 or $500.
I'm gonna say $399. That's my we'll bet on that. I guess. Like we'll come back around to that one. But
I'll say $450 then. $450.
Just you're one of those.
$449. $449.
No, you're gonna be one of those people. It's like no, it's gonna be $400, and I'm gonna be like $399. So like if it's more, then you're still gonna be closer than I am. That's you're one of those type of people, aren't you? But yeah, I mean
$449.99.
I hate you, Chris. No, but I mean, like the big question around this is the price. Like, I'm not sure how that's going to pan out because.
And with that comes what are they going to have on it? Because if it's just, I mean, yeah, I want to look around this Call of the Mountain because I know the IP and I love it. But all I've said is it's an experience. So is this going to be a glorified marketing machine? So are they just going to have their, are we going to have the God of War Call of a Mountain equivalent where it's the same, where it's just a big advert for the actual video game and it's just like an afterthought? Or are we going to have some decent games being made? Because that would mean Sony pulling focus, as far as we're aware, from things that... What I'm trying to say is we would know by now if Sony had some like teams dedicated to doing some cool, amazing stuff in PlayStation VR, unless they've been really good at keeping a lid on stuff and they just wow us with some amazing cool games when they announce the actual hardware.
They do have dedicated studios for the VR stuff, like the PlayStation London studio is specifically for VR stuff. But yeah, I mean, this game, if it's even a game, like, it was very much what I expected, of just, oh, you're sat in a car and a long neck walks over the top of you and it's like, it's coming straight at us. And it's like, no, it's not. It's taking a walk and you're just walking underneath, like you're rolling underneath its feet or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, yeah, I mean, it looks incredible and it looks like, like a PS4 game inside of a VR headset, which is super exciting to people like us that actually own VR systems and stuff. But it's like you said, is this just like a roller coaster ride of just us seeing this long neck walk over the top of us, or like so you can advertise actually the real game, which is Forbidden West? Can I climb it?
Can you climb it like what's that climbing game called?
The Climb.
Like The Climb? Yeah,
it's literally called The Climb. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it going to be like that? Because I would like that to be the case.
Yeah. I don't know.
If it's not like that.
Yeah, it's just the content needs to be there for one, and secondly, the big thing around this more than anything is a lot of people are saying, oh well, you need the VR headset, you also need a PS5, which you can't really get hold of at the moment. All of that sort of stuff is accurate, but the thing which makes me think that this could actually be a lot bigger than people think, more than anything, is that Sony have been, as you mentioned before, dabbling quite a lot in the PC market recently. They've been putting a lot of their games onto PC because they realize that there's a huge market there that's sort of untapped, and it's probably more important to sell the games rather than the hardware because they make a lot more money on that anyway. If they came out the gate and this thing could plug into a PC and work day one, that would be huge, because we're talking about a very, very cheap 4K VR headset that might have some really good content coming, and if they release that VR content onto the PC as well, that's a huge deal. Like that could be pretty big. So that's the only thing that makes me sort of double look at this thing. Like, okay, I'm not particularly interested in PlayStation VR2 yet until the content is there, very much like you. But if it comes to PC, then that could sort of explode the VR market a little bit, especially for wired headsets. I still think they've got a big hill to climb to become dominant like the Oculus Quest 2, but remains to be seen, I guess.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. The fact that it's wired is interesting because that would suggest they're going for like power and content and stunning visuals, so like high-end content rather than going with what the Oculus Quest 2 did and trying to get rid of their wires. But is that at the expense of some things? So that's interesting. So I like the fact that it's got a wire in a way, because it's almost trying to do something, by the sounds of it, that the Oculus Quest 2 isn't doing. It's trying to cater for another section of the market. And yeah, if that can plug into a PC, if that can go into Steam, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's only a matter of time before PlayStation probably make their own PC storefront when they get enough of their games anyway. So I think Steam it's very much like Unreal and like Ubisoft have also like moved away from it. EA have got their own storefront, all that sort of stuff. They still include some of their games onto Steam, but I think Steam is it's very much like it's a platform that's a bit too bloated for its own benefit at this point. It needs to it needs to curate its own content a little bit, but that's for sure. Needs to have some actual sort of restrictions for
Although
what can and can't get
because
through.
we want to be releasing games on there soon, so don't Don't say that.
I mean, I'd be happy to take the cut in that line. I mean, because it means that we have to, like, yeah, your game isn't good enough. It's like, okay, my game isn't good enough. Like, let's go back and let's make it better. Because when it does get onto there, you know it's going to sell because, like, they only curate good stuff.
Yeah, they don't have 7 out of 10s. So Days Gone won't get on there.
That's cold. It actually is on there, to be fair. So, you know, joke's on you, so. Anyway.
So yeah, it's a wait and see, but excited. I'm excited, yeah. And it's tough for me to get excited about, you know, that sort of thing. Where it comes to, like, whenever Sony do anything now, I'm always like, what is it going to be like? So,
yeah, Sony have been a bit weird because they're not being too arrogant. Like, they deserve their arrogance to a point. The PlayStation 4 is amazing, and the PS5 is obviously, you can't get hold of one because it's selling so well. So, like, they sort of deserve their arrogance at some point. But yeah, it's kind of, you know, like, is there going to be a turning point? And I genuinely think that is coming. I do believe it's stuff like that. Because this is the thing, like, what the thing that Sony has got. And I'm not saying, like, I don't mean this in, like, the console wars sort of stupidness. It's very much to do with Sony's mindset in the games industry. But once Xbox do start pumping out 9s consistently, like, Halo Infinite did really well, like, in terms of, like, how it's received. Starfield will be a banger, probably. Like, that's because, like, Bethesda Division 1 really don't make bad games. They really have never made a bad game yet. Like, if anyone's going to put any confidence in any game studio, it's going to be Bethesda Division 1. So like, that's probably going to be pretty decent. And then they've got all this stuff. Like, if they consistently start pumping out the quality, PlayStation's appeal might just start shifting a little bit, and it might be to their own detriment, especially if they're stubborn and sat there thinking, no, it's already worked out for us so far. And we just ignore everything that's going on with Game Pass. Like, obviously, Spartacus is coming, so it's interesting. It's really, really interesting to see Sony's mindset at this point. Like, I'd be curious to see where they are in a year's time. Yeah,
are they thinking, like, Nintendo vibes, like, we can just do whatever we want and the fans are going to buy it anyway? And then they turn around and, you know, everyone gets get Xbox Game Pass.
Yep.
And, like, for me, my plan is to just buy Spider-Man, God of War, Horizon, and then I can't think of anything else that I wouldn't just play on. Like, everything else is going to be Xbox, so I can think of, like, 3 games I'm going to play with my PlayStation. And I'm kind
of at that point with Nintendo as well. Like, Nintendo and Sony are becoming very similar in that respect. Like, my Switch is gathering dust for like 4 months, and then I put in one game and I play it, and then it gathers dust for another 6 months, and then it gathers dust. It's just over and over again. This is the cycle that I do. I consistently play my my PlayStation and my Xbox, but my Switch is just sort of there, and it's slow. Like, that is slowly becoming the case with my PS5 as well. Like, whenever, like, there isn't a first party exclusive coming out, like, I'm probably just playing something on Game Pass, and that's sort of like that's the switch that's happened. And I was a hardcore PS4 gamer last gen. Like, I didn't have an Xbox One whatsoever. So it's sort of like we've hit this weird point where Sony might be going that same way, which is great for Sony. Like, if they found their niche and that's what they want to chase, and they want to sort of implement themselves into the industry like Nintendo have. But what happens when a Wii U comes along for PlayStation? They're going to be kind of screwed. So they need to be careful in that respect, and I hope that never happens, because I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy, because the Wii U for Nintendo was just a disaster. So
yeah. That's interesting. Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good your IP is sometimes. Like, if the hardware isn't there, you're sort of screwed.
Yeah, if no one buys your hardware, it doesn't matter how good your games. It doesn't matter how good your games are. You're not going to sell anything.
And there was some great games on the Wii U. Great games.
Yeah.
But just people didn't play them because they couldn't, because they didn't want. They didn't want to buy into this machine that cost $500, and it was like there was only like less than 10 million of them units sold, like console wise.
Wow.
Insane.
And we're talking about like 8 million sold for Ghost of Tsushima, just one game.
Yeah.
Wow. And Days Gone, if you depending on who you believe. That's interesting. Yeah. It's definitely a fluid time. Things are changing. Gone are the days of, these consoles are coming out. Right, let's see what they do. It's not like a wind them up let them go, see what happens.
Yeah.
It's very fluid now.
Yeah, I mean, Game Pass and subscription services are just going to change the industry. I mean, they sort of already have, but I think it's going to get more and more to the point.
It's changed the way I play games, how I choose what to play, and where I spend money.
I haven't bought a full price game in months. Like, it's been a long time, and it's like that's a good thing as well. Like, I'm not having to spend all this money, but I'm consistently shelling out money to Xbox for Game Pass. Like, I've got Game Pass Ultimate, but it's still less overall.
Still less
but I'm
money
playing more
overall.
games.
Yeah,
so
win-win.
Yeah, it's always a win-win. But yeah, hopefully everyone else joins in, because it's.
Is that Dev Store on Games Pass? Oh no, you $30, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So it was 20. Super cheap.
20.
Yeah, you should buy it. Everyone should play Death Door. But yeah, to wrap up, like, just a quick PSA, I guess. Talking about
Stephen talked about dev mode on.
Yeah, that was the PSA, Xbox. I guess. But there was a lot of talk around this story, which is Microsoft says it has no plans to remove dev mode on Xbox. So what happened?
Give
like
the
this,
bullet points, Vin.
Yeah, this is sort of like a weird story. Like, for people that don't know, Xbox Series X and Series S can just be switched onto dev mode, and you basically use them as a developer console unit. You don't need a special sort of crazy unit. Like, PlayStation 5 has got like the UFO looking thing, which everyone saw screenshots of before the PS5 hardware was announced, and everyone thought that's how it's going to look, and look like a crazy UFO. It's just the dev kit. But Xbox have this really, really awesome feature for developers where you can just switch it to dev mode for like $10 or something. And you could just switch it on.
It's not an actual switch, though. It's you have to have an account with Microsoft, and then it unlocks it, isn't it? Yeah.
But it's really, really easy
on your Xbox. Don't go looking for one.
Yeah, there's no switch. Is this it? No, it's the power button. But yeah, there's this developer mode, but there's a lot of talk in the sort of emulation scene, because what you can do and what a lot of people have been doing is switching their console over to developer mode, and then applying sort of RetroArch and all these sort of PlayStation 2 emulators onto their Xboxes, which is hilarious, playing PlayStation 2 games like 60 FPS on an Xbox. But you can totally do that. It's your own prerogative if you want to do that. But a lot of people thought that Microsoft would just suddenly cutting down on this and against it, because people started getting their accounts revoked for inactivity or whatever. And everyone in the sort of emulation scene, there was a few big YouTubers that sort of jumped on this. I think Modern Vintage Gamer made a video about this straight away. There was a few other like retro game channels that made videos on it, but like, Xbox are cutting down on this. Like, it's a massive disappointment. I can't believe Microsoft would do this. Like, after all these years of having developer mode, the fact they're just going to start taking it away from people like this. And it turns out it was a bug. And Xbox were like, yeah, we have absolutely no plans to remove developer mode from anyone for any reason. This is just a thing that we're trying to figure out, and we will figure it out. So,
it's a bug.
It's a bug.
Okay. So it was 30 days of inactivity, and then it revoked their subscription, basically. Is that right?
Yep.
But that was a bug. Okay, cool.
Well, I don't know if it was like an actual bug, but there was... The way that they framed it was a bug. They might have seen the backlash, and then that's why they changed it. But still, regardless, they've changed. Like, that's not really... I don't think that was ever the plan. So there was...
Because the purpose for it was to release games, isn't it? The whole point of developer mode is to create a game for the purposes of releasing it on the Xbox platform.
So, as the indie developers...
PlayStation 2...
Yeah,
we're indie developers, so we're going to utilize this because we want to try it out. Even if we don't ever release it on the Xbox, we totally want to see if we could and investigate. As well, I'm definitely going to look into try and get it on the platform. You know, if anyone, one of our subscribers, is in charge of Game Pass, then hit us up when the games are done. Because we'll want to put it on there probably.
Yeah, I mean, the way that it works is that you can literally switch your Xbox to dev mode, and then us, as indie developers, can export our game as a package file, and then we can literally just put it on a USB stick it into our Xbox, and load it up from our Xbox, and it just works. It just plays, which is amazing. Like, it's great for us. But if you're... And we can upload that to the store of Xbox as well, straight from the developer kit, which is crazy that you can submit stuff through that, which is awesome. Yeah. But like when the emulation stuff is implemented, like it's the same thing. You just put in a USB, uploads as a package file. Obviously, you can't upload that to the store because that's highly illegal. So they don't allow that into the store. But you can still put it onto your Xbox and just use it as an emulation machine. And a lot of people are buying Series S's, which is the white version, the digital only version of the Xbox Series, and just using that as an emulation machine, which is kind of hilarious to me. The fact that people are playing PlayStation 2 games on their Xboxes is, there's only so much you can laugh at that.
Check out Gamepass is all we can say to that. There's some really good games there.
Yeah, there's some great games on there. But yeah, there was quick sort of statement issued from Xbox said we have no plans to remove or disable dev mode on Xbox, which is it's pretty definitive. So don't freak out too much. Like if you are like either an indie dev that is worried that your sort of developer mode is going to get pulled out, or if you're someone that enjoys emulation scene, if you're into retro games and you bought an Xbox specifically for this, you have nothing to worry about. Like it was just an error. Yeah.
I'm one of these people that I saw the first half of the story and I just thought that was it. And I just thought, there'll be something like it. What I thought was, you'll probably have to contact Microsoft and be like, hey, I do devs, hey, I do want to release a game, but it might not be 30 days. Do I need to keep paying money? Am I going to get reimbursed the money for the subscription, or how's it going to work? So I wanted to find that out eventually, but I did think that they were stopping all accounts that didn't, had 60 or 90 days of inactivity. But now that I know that's not the case, that's interesting, and I'm definitely assuming there are so many people out there that are like me that just think that's what Xbox wanted to do, and the fact that these YouTubers jumped on the bandwagon and started going with this version of events.
Yeah, it's very much it's an interesting sort of case study into like people jumping the gun, especially YouTubers and journalists, not waiting for an official statement from Xbox or Microsoft.
Yeah.
Like they just didn't. They just automatically assumed they saw this email from Xbox and like, they're revoking us. That's it. This is what they're doing. And then everyone was up in arms about it. It's Xbox like, how about this is why actual journalists reach out to people for commentary. Have you ever considered why they do that? That's probably why they do that. And this is an exact reason why they do that, is so you idiots don't jump to the wrong conclusion and automatically assume that the world in the sky is falling down. So like, it's an exercise of restraint. Like that's the best way to look at this. But I just want to put it out there, like for any of our viewers that are sort of watching and listening, developer mode is not getting revoked.
Yeah,
it's not happening.
Hooray!
So all is well, all is good, all is fine.
It's off to a good start this year, isn't it?
I'd say so.
All in all,
yeah,
we've got stuff to look forward to. Some massive games. We're all having a good time with Game Pass.
There's a lot of games coming out. Like we've got Horizon Forbidden West. We got Dying Light 2 next month. It's going to be crazy. Yeah, we got Extraction this month.
This month on Game Pass. Yeah.
And next month is also, I think, Elden Ring is out next month.
Oh my god.
It's wild, man. Like there's a lot of stuff coming.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely need to give up my Jurassic Park addiction. I'm definitely going to knock down that. I'm going
to have to get my umbrella run of Death's Door out of the way as well, so I can definitely play. Horizon is definitely going to take up some of my time, so that's the main thing. But Dying Light 2 as well. God, so much good stuff.
Interesting. I'm really intrigued as to find out how long I can exist on the world when the new Horizon is out without me being able to play it. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work.
It's coming out for PlayStation 4 as well, right? So you're probably getting
on that. I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to wait until I get a PS5, or I don't know whether or not I want to upgrade it first.
You have got a PlayStation 4 Pro, though, so you'll probably get similar benefits to it, I'm guessing.
Hopefully it just won't be the frame rate. Might be any difference then. Hopefully it'll look as good.
It'll be 30 FPS, but it'll look the same, I'm guessing. That'll be my assumption.
If that's the case, then I probably would get it.
And then the PS5 version is probably going to be 60 FPS.
Yeah.
That'd be my assumption. Hopefully.
Yeah. Hope that's the case. Well, look, I'm not going to get it straight away. I'm going to wait until
you are.
The reviews come out.
You say that, but you'll get it. Like, you'll see the first previews or the first reviews come out and you're like, nope, getting it, can't do it.
Yeah.
That's what's going on.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it'll be like it's gonna be like The Last of Us 2 all over again. And I'm gonna have an existential crisis, and then I'm gonna hate video games.
Yeah, it's just just emo Aloy at the end, like killing her best friend or something. That's what's going to be happening, right?
No, don't say that. No. No.
God, if they ever do that with another IP at Sony, I'm just gonna I quit. I'm gonna trade in my PS5. I'm done. I'm gonna become a Nintendo fanboy instead. That's The Last
You
of
would
Us.
never do this to me, Nintendo.
Exactly. Yeah, like you never see Mario like killing Peach or something. You know, like you
No,
betrayed us or whatever. You know, I don't know.
They got post-apocalyptic Kirby though.
We have. You're right.
Yeah.
Like, what is that going to be about? I don't know. That game intrigues me.
Yeah, that is very That does look up my street. I didn't even know that street existed in my mind, but yeah, that does look up there.
Anyway, we should wrap this thing up anyway. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate it, and Happy New Year to all of you. If you do want to like and subscribe, we would really appreciate it. Got a lot more stuff coming. Yeah, there's obviously a lot more stuff coming out over the next couple of months. We're going to be talking about a lot of them. So please hit the bell icon so you can be notified when we do go live and when we got a new video up for whatever. But as I mentioned before, like if you are an indie developer, then please check out our Indie Dev Solo Roundtable that we have once a month with Sam Webster. We've got a playlist. Yep. So you can check that out. And yeah, please play Death's Door because it's amazing. And also don't play Jurassic Park Evolution because you'll never stop playing it. That's the main takeaway.
That's advice we can give.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Death's Door can be completed, so play that one instead. It's a great game. It's amazing. Chris, where can people find you, man?
At Acrylic Pixel on Twitter. I think it's Acrylic Pixel on Instagram as well, but I don't really put much on there. And my dying YouTube channel, which I might get rid of eventually, don't bother checking it out, is Acrylic Pixel as well. What about you, Vin?
Cool. Yeah, you can find me at Hillfolk Games on Twitter and Instagram. Like they're both around, but I don't really use my Instagram one that much. You can also find me on ArtStation. I am Vin Hill Art. All my concept art is there. I've got to be posting up some Rainbow Six Extraction stuff probably within the next few weeks now that the game's almost here. Thankfully. Yes. Get this out of the way.
Oh, we can talk about that. That's an episode. There you go.
It's just true. That's if we're not too busy talking about Horizon.
Portfolio.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, yeah.
We can talk
about
that stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
That'll be a good one. But yeah, other than that, you can find us right here next week. Same time every Sunday. You can also find us on Anchor and Spotify and all of your favorite podcast services. We float around everywhere. So until next time.
Bye.
Farewell. Play Death's Door.